Hello, ladies. This is a live stream podcast for Courage, Dear Heart. And I wanted to come on spontaneously and talk about feminine shame and the female nervous system. How many of you really understand about shame and the female nervous system, or how many of you feel that you carry shame? Do you understand what it is? And the reason I'm doing this is because I put a post up earlier about shame, and there's been some amazing comments. Thank you, ladies, for who have commented thus far on my free group, Wild Awakening, Understanding Your Feminine Nature. And I've seen it come up a lot in my circle community recently, and with clients, one-to-one clients. And I've just come back from running my Wild Awakening Crete retreat, which was amazing, really incredible. And I could see we didn't dive deep into shame, but I could see and feel the pockets of it and the pieces of it as we moved through our week together. So I felt compelled really to come on and speak about feminine shame. And um, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to explore this topic more deeply. Now, I've explored it in the circle quite deeply in one of the transmissions in my online membership. But as my experience and research has deepened on the female nervous system, I feel like I have a deeper understanding from when I spoke about guilt and shame on the circle transmission, which was a couple of years ago. For those of you who aren't in my circle, you can join at any time. It's 24.99, and there's loads of amazing resources in there and loads of transmissions which I speak to in helping women to understand themselves more deeply. Um, but yeah, so we are going to be talking about shame specifically on this episode. And before you kind of go, oh, that's not for me, I just want to encourage you to say, maybe it is. Maybe that's a doorway. Let me move this phone out the way because it's going to make noise. Um, oh, oh, hello, Carol. Hello, Hazel. I can't see it on my laptop. Um, it's lovely to see you here. Carol was with me last week in Crete, which was amazing. But yeah, thank you so much for letting me know you're here. Anyway, shame, 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 shame. Um, if we think this isn't for us, it's often a doorway, and our impulse is to shut the door on that. And that's often shame doing exactly what it does best, which is to keep itself hidden. So I'd love for you to stay here. And if you can't stay for whatever reason, because I know this is completely unplanned, then maybe save this for later so you can come back to it. It's not going to be a super long episode. I know that because of the nature of shame, we feel like, we sort of peek over a little bit and just keep our silence and stay hidden. And this again is something that I see very often in when I bring women together, that kind of um, it's a very beautiful survival strategy, but just to stay away and stay silent. So what I want to start off by saying, and I really want to again thank you for all your comments on the question this morning that I posted in this group, but like I want to specify the difference between guilt and shame. All right, because they're not the same thing at all, and they're not the same thing in our body and in our experience at all. But women use probably guilt more than they would do shame. They're more familiar with the feeling of guilt, like I feel guilty about saying no, or I feel guilty about losing my temper, or I feel guilty about fill in the blank. So the difference between the two is that guilt is I have made a mistake, and shame is I am a mistake. Now I'm going to say that again because this is really important to anchor into your system. And I appreciate that what I'm doing at the moment with this podcast, with this live episode, is that I'm going into the mental gates. I'm going into the top down, like I'm speaking to your mind rather than your body. The body and the somatic work is the work that I do deeply on my retreats and with my clients and a little bit in the circle. Guilt is or says, I've made a mistake. Shame says to you, I am a mistake. So the difference between those two is that guilt has movement in it. So if I feel guilty, there's a part of me that can apologize, I can recalibrate, I can make it right, I can learn from it. There's some agency in there and there's some room to breathe. I often see it as women use it as a shitty stick to beat themselves with, though. And so there's this sort of repetition around guilt. So you might be more familiar with that anyway. But shame is a belief system. Shame is an identity that we've wrapped ourselves around in through a lifetime. So it's not something that we have done, like guilt. It's something that we have decided we are. And because it lives in identity, it solidifies, it becomes very dense in our bodies. It becomes the story that we tell ourselves over and over and over again. And it's the story that we mistake for truth. It's the water that we're swimming in. This picture behind me, if you can see my picture, I think you can, is the water of Crete. The water that I used to swim in was absolutely shame. Shame, victim, drama, chaos, but very, very loud, shitty committee, right? So, shame essentially is a conspiracy theory about yourself. It's not the truth. If you carry shame, and this is why I think guilt's easier to get a feel for, because shame is literally the water that we're swimming in that we don't necessarily understand. And it is the belief that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. There's something not good enough about you, not pretty enough, not clever enough, not thin enough, not productive enough, not enough. It's really strong unworthiness. And that belief that's been running quietly in the background, or maybe not so quietly, shapes our choices, our decisions, our relationships, our female body, and it has been doing that since we were very, very small. So as we grow older through our lives and we make decisions and we maybe act in a certain way or do things that we feel ashamed of, we have done those because we are living in and swimming in the waters of shame. Now, I will be going deeper on these pieces. I'm going to create a sort of mini program around shame and the female nervous system. And that's why I wanted to just come on here and do this. It's going to be very minimal price, but I feel like this is such an important piece for women to understand about themselves. So, what I want to say here and add here is that it starts incredibly early, and we're talking before our words have formed. So, it's those very first years of life, our nervous systems are created in our mother's tummy, in utero. So our nervous system is shaped by our mother's nervous system. So in those first early years of life, those sort of primary years, we are very often responding to our caregivers, but we've been um, symbiotically linked to our mother's nervous system in her tummy. And so when we're very little, our brains are in what's called a theta state, which some of you may have heard of if you've studied meditation or learnt about meditation. And in meditation, what they're trying to get you in is a theta state because it's suggestible. And it's also the same state that we are in just before we go to sleep, which is why, again, people who encourage meditation encourage you to listen just as you are dropping to sleep. But when we're very young, our brains are in this theta state naturally, which means everything is pouring into our subconscious without a filter. Everything, including school, which starts usually at the age of 5. So, those very young and tender and innocent years, we may have perceived the way that our caregivers looked at us, our teachers spoke to us, the tone of our caregiver's voice, a certain look. And this will have all kind of given you an experience in your life of whether you've felt safe, whether you were loved, whether you were attuned to, whether you were seen, whether you were accepted in any kind of way. And it gets encoded in our unconscious mind. It's not a memory, it's deeply rooted, unconscious. It's there, and it then creates this belief about who you are in the world. And we grow up with this identity. And if you grew up, um, which I have to say, most of us did, in an environment, and this isn't necessarily about what they call capital T trauma or, any kind of environment where you weren't attuned to, even in the subtlest of ways. If there was a tone, a look, if you ate some chocolate that you shouldn't have eaten, if there was anything that wasn't in full, where you weren't allowed to be in full permission of yourself, where love maybe felt conditional, where big emotions weren't welcome, i.e., stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, was something that I definitely heard, amongst other things. Where being too loud or too sensitive or too withdrawing or not helpful, or if you felt disappointment from the people around you, particularly the people that you needed the most, your female nervous system drew a conclusion. And that conclusion is, or was, something about me is the problem. And this is where the story begins, really, about shame, because as women, as little girls, we are incredibly relational. We are relating to everybody in our field, and we need that because we are women and we were born really to commune together and to collaborate and to bleed together and be in community and tribe together. So little girls are if they're not getting their needs met in whatever way from their caregivers, they are going to go into different states of nervous systems, different states, i.e., freeze, fawn. We can't run away when we are very small, and we certainly can't fight. So we go often into freeze and fawn, and this is where shame lives. So you may have had big trauma, you may not have had big trauma, but there's often subtle ways where your needs weren't met and you learnt. that you were the problem, because it's easier for our little selves to go, well, it can't be my parents or my caregivers, so it must be me. We don't have the cognitive ability to kind of go, actually, they're completely not in their body and they're projecting a load of stress onto me and I'm not going to carry it. We don't have that capacity when we're very small because we are obviously needing to survive. So I want to get a little bit more specific here because there's a particular flavor of shame that that I see is shame, feminine shame, shame about being a woman, and not just about being a woman. It's shame towards everything that is feminine in nature. And this is the cultural waters that we swim in, right? So, what I mean by that is there's shame, or we can feel shame about our softness, about our womanly body, about our cyclical nature, about our fluidity, about our emotional experience, particularly as a teenager and upwards when we start our bleed. We're taught that, blood is to be hidden, that our intuition may be wrong. And we are taught that actually, if we take care of others and we're seen as sexualized, objectified beings, then that's kind of where our worth is. So a lot of us grow up in this extraordinarily distorted world of the feminine. And unfortunately, the world that we live in, our current culture and the water that we swim in values the opposite. It values the consistent, it values the rational, it values the fixed, it values the productive. And it doesn't value the parts of us that cry, that fluctuate, that need rest, yin. It doesn't value yin. It doesn't value grief in the way that I have come to value grief. It doesn't value the blood of us and community and our cyclical and seasonal nature. And those parts of us, our younger parts of us, the parts that were not only swimming in the waters of shame and unworthiness, we were kind of programmed as well by a culture that shunned all of that. That I feel there's an intentional, they want us to be disconnected from our power. And you see it very, very clearly. A lot of you will be postmenopausal, like myself. There's a huge war on women postmenopausally. Their message is really strong that there's something wrong with you, and it's just not the truth. It's just not the truth. But I'm going to go more into that in the program that I'm creating now. Yeah, so it's like feminine shame is that intense, deeply held resistance, almost like an aversion to anything that in us that moves like water rather than stone. So it shows up everywhere, as I said, in body shame, body dysmorphia, food shame, sexual shame, sensual shame, in shame around how we mother or don't mother or want to mother, in shame around our emotions being too much, too sensitive, too intense, too loud, shame around money. This is a big one. Shame around education, around mental health, religious shame, religions that have taught us our bodies are dangerous, that we're either the virgin or the whore, this very binary experience of the feminine. And, in this sort of devastating belief, we're taught that we are unlovable. And I want to tell you that that's just simply not true. Every inch of you is lovable. Every tear of yours is lovable. Every decision that you've ever made is lovable. Um, everything, everything about you is lovable. And I feel, you can probably tell, I feel very passionate about this. We didn't create this in ourselves. These beliefs were handed down to us through our mothers, through their mothers, through generations of women who have been taught the same thing. So this lives in our cells, in our bones a lot of the time. This is in our female lineage. So this means it's not a personal failing of you. And I know that many of you tell me it's a personal failing of you, and it isn't. And I really hope that you hear this. It's a pattern that you have inherited or learned or been programmed with that's waiting to be interrupted. And this is the work that I do with women. This is the work that I've done on myself. I cannot tell you how much shame I lived in, and I would feel it. I wouldn't understand that that's what it was, but I would feel this intense pain in my stomach, in my heart, and I would just want to literally curl up and die often. So if you feel like that, please know that I understand very deeply. There is a video, some of you who are new to me, there's a video that I can share with you if you want of me being coached back in 2018, where I was living in shame and I was living with chronic anxiety, and my hair had fallen out and my skin was terrible, and I picked it, and I was in a what you would see when you watch this video of me being coached, a very low and very sad and very lonely and very isolated place. And I'm happy to share with that with any of you who ask. Just let me know. You can either type it in the comments in this free group, or if you're listening to this as a podcast or on my YouTube channel, then just send me an email or a message somewhere and I will send you the link, because I want to show you what's possible. When you watch this video of me being coached, you'll see and feel a difference in me, and you will see and feel a difference in the me now. So I want to share that with you because I think it's super important. I had, as I said, chronic anxiety and what's commonly known as post-traumatic stress disorder. I no longer see it as a disorder. I see it as a nervous system response to chronic trauma and stress, right? So when we talk about shame, we often make the mistake that it's a thought, but it's something that lives in our body. It's the narrative that we're swimming in. We might make the mistake that it lives up here, but it lives in the body. So as I just said, I could feel this experience in my body that I didn't have words for, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand about my nervous system. I just thought there was something wrong with me, and it felt incredibly painful, which I now know is shame, and it had been living in my body, right? It had been living in my body. I just want to check to see if there's any other comments. So when shame is triggered in us, and remember, a trigger is a time machine, so we go back to the original point where it first started, where our nervous system responded in a beautiful, wise way, right? It's a wise, protective response, but we don't understand that. So we are traveling back in our somatic experience, in our soma, in our body, and we're having an experience. So it might be that, it might be a look, it might be a tone, it might be a memory, it might be a song, it might be a word, it could be something which appears to be insignificant. It will never be insignificant, it will always be a portal. But our nervous system, our female nervous system, goes into a threat response, a freeze response, a shame response. So it might be that your chest, you feel it in your chest, and your chest might tighten. You might become aware of your jaw clenching. Now, some of you may not even be aware that your jaw is clenched the whole time. We did this a lot in Crete last week. A lot of the ladies were like, I didn't even realize. The tongue's up onto the roof of the mouth. Where is your tongue as you're listening to me now? Your breath might become shallow. Again, you might not know this. The logical part of our brain just actually goes completely offline, and we become either reactive, like, or we shrink and we armor up. Okay, so this is a very physiological, somatic experience. Okay, that's the truth. And if you think about the posture of shame, like what happens to you when you feel like low and sad and unhappy, you kind of like go, you shrink, right? So your head comes forwards, it drops, your shoulders curl up and forwards, the gaze goes down. You might pick up your phone to disassociate, to numb out. Our bodies want to make themselves smaller in that way. They want to disappear. There's an element of like, please don't see me, or we'll hide under the metaphorical duvet, literally and, metaphorically. And we do that in a number of different ways. And some of us, ladies, live in that posture the whole time. Not necessarily physically, although I think that is the case, but energetically. There's a constant bracing, there's a constant jaw lock, there's a constant tongue at the roof of our mouths, there's a constant sort of performance. I wrote a post about resting bitch face, which is something else that women get slagged off for. It's the face of freeze. Anyway, I digress. I could talk about this a lot longer than you probably would want me to. So I want to say to this piece here, this physiological piece of bracing, of shrinking, of locking, of armoring, that this then has a long-term impact on our female bodies. When shame becomes chronic, it's not just something that kind of flares up and passes, because if we don't understand it, we just respond, right, to our physiology, to our soma, to our bodies. So it quietly has shaped your sense of self for years, which means your body is going to be very likely in a low grade freeze response all of the time. Now, that has physiological and physical consequences, which I will go deeper in on this mini program. But I just want to say, if you experience inflammation, fatigue, pain, digestive issues, autoimmune conditions, insomnia, hormonal dysregulation, menopausal issues. Menopause is a portal. There's nothing wrong with you. The list is very long. Now, I have an autoimmune condition myself, and I'm okay with that. I understand why. Um, and I'm doing my best to sort of heal it naturally, but I'm not surprised. So I don't have any, thinking about it. But a lot of women have health anxiety as well as these conditions, and there's always going to be a female nervous system response, mental health issues and physical health issues. Now, I'm not saying this to overwhelm you. I say this to you because so many women reach out to me and say, I'm struggling with the menopause, or I'm struggling with my pain, or I'm struggling with fibromyalgia, or I'm struggling with my IBS, or I'm struggling with my anxiety, or I'm struggling with like whatever, right? I'm sure all of you women listening will have something like that. And all of you will have tried every supplement, every diet, every protocol, every therapist probably. And you get to a point where you're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And of course, that's where we come back to the shame thing is always there's something wrong with me. And I want to promise you that there isn't. Because when we get to the root of the unprocessed shame, your female nervous system didn't get to complete its response. You have lived in a world that doesn't want you to understand your body. You live in a world that wants you to stay connected from your beautiful female body and its wisdom. Your body is not broken. Menopause is not something to be afraid of. It's a highlighter, like really, of your soma and your body speaking louder. And I say this to you as someone who hasn't bled, who's postmenopausal, I haven't bled for 6 years. Um, and again, I could go off on a whole tangent, but I'm not going to. But to reiterate here, there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. You're all living in some low level freeze, and the waters that you're swimming in is unworthiness. And I am a mistake. I am wrong. I shouldn't be here. But your body, your brilliant body, has been protecting you. All right. So, um, I just want to just quickly talk to you about something that I spoke about in the circle transmission, and it's this compass of shame. What do we do when shame gets triggered? What are the strategies we've learned to protect ourselves from feeling it? So this can look like anything, but um, in my circle transmission, I talk about it as a compass of shame, and it describes the four ways we tend to respond when shame shows up. The first is withdrawal, as I have mentioned, right? And who here can resonate with withdrawal? We isolate, we hide, we go quiet, we disappear physically, emotionally, energetically, and we can do that again in a myriad of ways. The second is avoidance, right? We numb, we disassociate. We don't realize we're disassociating, but there's a numbness to this. We reach for the glass of wine, we reach for the food, we scroll, we put the TV on, we keep busy, which a lot of you mentioned on the question thing I did on the group. Anything not to feel it, right? Anything not to feel what needs to be felt with love and compassion. And I'm going to just speak to that a little bit in a minute. But the third is attacking the self. We attack ourselves. We turn inwards on ourselves. We internalize the messages that we get from our culture or from our caregivers, and the harsh inner critic gets incredibly loud and puts you down. And there's sort of this whole thing around self-sabotage, which I equally don't really buy into, but you may have used that word self-sabotage, and then you can go, well, I knew I wasn't good enough. I knew no one could help me. I had a woman say to me once, I'm unhelpable, because that's the water that she's swimming in, and she's not, and neither are you. And the fourth is attacking another. We deflect outwards, we blame, we criticize, we make someone else the problem so we don't have to feel the vulnerability underneath. And so this is always a really interesting one as well. Most of us will have a dominant strategy, and maybe you recognize yourself in one of those, maybe all four at different times. I've definitely done all of those things at different times. But here's what I want you to know. None of those are bad. There is no bad or good here. I don't speak in that binary language. You do. I don't. None of you are bad. None of you do bad things. None of you make bad decisions. These are intelligent feminine adaptations. Your nervous system developed these responses because they worked. They worked. They kept you safe. They kept you connected to the people that you needed, and they helped you survive, right? And if you can just hear that, there's nothing wrong with you. There is no bad, there is no good. These are adaptations that have created a response that as an adult we have a language or an inner harsh critic about. And this is why I'm passionate about bringing women together. And this is why I love my online circle community. And this is why I love my retreats. Because women see other women, women support other women, women say to other women, me too, when they feel able to share something. And it's so fucking powerful. I cannot stress that enough. My circle and my retreats. This is where you will feel the difference. So I don't want you to go, oh, okay, I just need to think differently. I need to change my story. I need to do my affirmations. I am wonderful. I am powerful. No, that's not where this lives either. And I don't want to dismiss affirmations if they work for you. But if you don't believe that you're worthy and you don't believe you're good enough, no amount of telling yourself in the mirror that you are is going to work because 80% of the body signals, 80% of your body signals come up to your brain bidirectionally, which means your body's responding before your mind's even had a chance to catch up. And the story of your mind follows the nervous system state. 80% from the body to the brain. Your body is responding first. Okay. And if you have that story, then we can often get a secondary layer of shame and maybe a third layer of shame because now I'm shaming myself for feeling the shame, right? For not believing my own self when I say, I am worthy, I am good enough. I know when my dad died and I was in this terrible, terrible grief state, nervous system state, which I now understand. I'd walk around pine woods at Wells next to the sea. I am rich. I am thin. I am lovable. I am for hours. And little did I know, because my body didn't believe it, my female body didn't believe it, it made no difference. In fact, it made it worse because I was like, not even these work for me. And so this is the gap, right? This is what I want you to understand as women, that there's this gap between what we believe and what we're actually feeling in our body. And that is what I want you to understand, understand that the work has to be from your body. Real healing from shame has to happen in your body. Okay? And what that looks like is simply allowing yourself to feel it. It's going to look like allowing yourself to kind of even just name it. I can feel this in my heart. I can feel my shoulders up above my ears. I can feel myself crouched down. I can feel that I've gone to my phone. Zoe asked a question on the shame thing earlier. Is it compassion that is needed? 100%. However, what I just said was if your body doesn't believe you, then I don't want you to gaslight yourself. Compassion has to be a practice, right? Because if we don't understand what compassion feels like, because if we've never received it, how do we know how to offer that to ourselves? So you have to kind of even name it. I feel ashamed. I feel angry. I feel pissed off with myself because I can't get this, right? I have to be honest. I have to learn not to gaslight myself and then shame myself. Oh my God, you don't even believe this. More shame, right? You have to bring it into the light. The practice is always going to be, and we'll do more of this in the mini program, is can I just be with what's showing up for me without needing to change it, without needing to fix it, without making myself wrong for it? If I can make you non-gaslightable to yourself, I can make you non-gaslightable to anyone. And that is a fucking amazing place to be, let me tell you. And shame thrives in the darkness. You know, shame needs for itself to be kept hidden. And so the antidote here is to speak it. This feels hard for me. This feels shameful for me. I feel that I'm isolating myself. this is bringing it into the light for yourself. And that's how compassion starts for yourself and others. Because that's what ultimately happens. You start to understand it or understand it in yourself, and then you see it in others, and so you're less likely to attack or get triggered by someone else, right? So I call this somatic reparenting. It's literally holding yourself with tenderness and love and care, even as you speak out all of the things that you're feeling or thinking. And I promise you, we will go deeper into that. It's not about bypassing. This is never going to be about bypassing, because what lives in your body is incredibly powerful. And when you transmute that, you literally open everything in your experience. And that has been my experience. So I wanted to come on and speak for 20 minutes, and I think I've been speaking as usual for a really long time. My circle ladies will know this. I do an ask me anything, and they can literally ask me anything in the circle, right? And I'm like, I've got however many questions, and I could talk for an hour on each one. Anyway, this will be a podcast episode. This will go out on my YouTube channel. And if this resonated for you, please share it with another woman. Invite your women, friends, and sisters into this group. And let's keep building this amazing community. And if you want to talk to me about my retreats, then everyone's welcome to a free call. Just let me know, and I will really look forward to meeting with you and connecting with you. And I'll try and come on and do some more of these because I really enjoy them. But shame is an important topic, and I want you to know that. And if you're interested in the mini program, which will be about £33, please just comment below on the free group, and I'll be sure to circle back to you when it's created. But it's such an important topic. Thank you for listening. Have courage, dear women. Lots of love. Thank you for listening to Courage, Dear Heart. I really appreciate it. It would be amazing if you could leave me a review and press subscribe so that others who are looking to find freedom from anxiety and habits can find their way here. You can also go to my website, iamcharliwall.com, and subscribe, sign up for my emails, and you'll also find my Facebook group, Finding Freedom from Habits and Anxiety, on Facebook. So yeah, please do connect with me, and I'll see you next week.